Once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Koberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Pride, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I'm Daniel, and today we're going to go back into the Monique and Spencer Tepe case. There's been an arrest made, as I'm sure everybody's aware of Michael Mckee, former ex-husband, or the former husband, now ex-husband of Monique Tepe. Apparently, that relationship ended not so great, obviously. And so we're going to be going through some of the information that we've come across when it comes to this case, when it comes to Michael. And we're going to have a special guest on the show, a returning guest, who's going to kind of answer some of the questions I've had when it comes to the psychology of the alleged murderer. You know, all persons are innocent until proven guilty, which includes Michael Mckee. He has not been found guilty of anything, and so this is all alleged. So without further ado, let's bring in Dr. Jamie Vona. Dr. Vona, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, Daniel. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. It was a long weekend. It's sadly coming to a close, but it was a good weekend.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. Welcome,
Yes.
everybody in chat.
Yes,
we have a
ma'am.
lot of people here. We're good.
We're good. We do. And so thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're seeing this in a different format than you're accustomed to, there's 2 lives going on. Well, there's actually, I think, 4. But on each channel, there's 2 lives, one with a landscape view and one with a portrait view. So whatever you like, just make sure you go to the channel, and then you hit the live button, and it'll show you the 2. And if you want to go between those 2, you can.
So let me just say one thing about that real quick. So people, sometimes they're getting confused about chat. Just remember that it's 2 separate chats. So if you like the one, maybe open the other chat if you want. But I know that sometimes it gets confused with the chat. So just so that people know that I believe it's 2 separate chats. So we have 4 chats going on pretty much.
Pretty much. It's a crazy thing going on that YouTube's doing. But hey, here we are. So this is an interesting case. I'm glad you could join us. I wanted to bring you on because I felt like there's a lot that, with your expertise that you could, kind of help us out with. You have a guy here in Michael Mckee who allegedly, I'm pretty positive it's the right guy. It seems like they got a lot of evidence against him, but allegedly committed this crime 9 years after their divorce. What does that tell you about somebody who's hold something for that long? This is a domestic violence situation. What does that say about the type of person we could be dealing with if another person, waited 9 years to commit a crime like this?
So this says to me that this breakup, for me, I feel like this probably his, and again, this is all alleged. So if this is the guy, then from what they know, they said that they think he's been stalking or surveilling her for a while. This stalking's really rarely about reconciliation. So the person's not stalking you because they do want to get back with you, but that's not really the issue that's going on. It's about restoring control. So he must feel out of control. I have learned that he was adopted. I've learned that he has excelled in all of the things that he's done in life. So as far as going to school, even the football and stuff, he's excelled in many areas. So I'm sure that when this marriage fell apart, it must have felt out of control for him. That's pretty much what, so it must have felt out of control. But there's usually a predictable escalation that I'll get over to at some point in the slide that people could look for just in case they're going through something similar.
Yeah. To me, for somebody to hold, this in for that long, I think that there's probably maybe some other stalking, as you mentioned. I don't know if she was aware of it at the time or not. Her coworkers or his coworkers were pretty concerned right away. Maybe they were aware of some issues in the past, to be concerned right away. But do you think that maybe even, known to her or not known to her, but that he's most likely been like following her and stalking her throughout this entire time?
In my opinion, absolutely. So, and there's usually an escalation path here too. So first we see like rumination. This is the steps that I was just talking about. So rumination is when you replay the relationship obsessively in your head. So he could have thought about all the things. From what I've heard, she only lasted 7 months in the marriage. And I believe they broke up and like went out, broke up, went out over and over before they ever get married. So, we have to look for things like somebody being obsessive. Then the second one would be surveillance. So monitoring routines, locations, social media. I know her brother-in-law now feels bad because he did that beautiful wedding video, but I'm like, no, you shouldn't feel bad. Like you shouldn't have to live in fear thinking, I mean, she would have had no way to know. They were together. I mean, their marriage was 7 months. They've been broken up for years. They said that she did feel, she was scared of him. But didn't they live 300 miles away? That's a lot. The other one I have real quick is grievance building. So I usually call this person an injustice filer. So what I mean by that is every time they felt that the person did them an injustice, it's like a filing cabinet and you just keep filing these injustices until there's a triggering event. The next one real quick is rehearsal. So this is mentally and physically planning. And then finally, the triggering event. This is often perceived final rejection, or it could be something stressful in the person's life. For example, I hear that he had a pending suit against him for medical malpractice, allegedly. So if that's the case, that could have been a triggering event as well.
Apparently when they broke up or they got the divorce, he's told people, again, this is what he's told other folks, is that, he came home one day and she was gone. Like everything of hers was gone. She left while he was at work. What can that tell you about somebody who leaves like that, out of the marriage?
Yeah, for me, leaving like that usually it usually means something like some type of marital conflict. So clinically, it often signals things like fear, urgency. So the person, obviously, they felt like they had to leave and it was urgent, or they wouldn't have just up and left. I mean, we look at a lot of people that get divorced and, there might be, a moving out Sunday type thing. It's not like I'm going to wait until you leave. And then, so that just says to me that there must have been, and even if it was perceived, there must have been some form of fear, if you will, or urgency. She must have perceived like imminent psychological or physical danger, which is why somebody, might leave in that sense. What do you think?
I think that there definitely could have been some physical stuff there. I mean, this guy, obviously, if he did commit this crime, went and was able to commit a very heinous crime, he's probably able and willing to commit other crimes against others. I also wonder if it was a scenario where she was, fearful that he would convince her not to go. That if she confronted him, if the moving happened, while he was there, if he's this narcissist, if he's this guy that's able to talk his way out of things, maybe perhaps he's able to talk her into staying, and maybe he doesn't want her, maybe she's afraid of that as well, on top of everything else.
I agree.
And so but she leaves, he he doesn't move on. I mean, apparently he dated other girls, and through that, according to things that I've read online, he's always kept tabs on her through their friends and things of that nature. Is that like screams kind of like narcissism? The one person who doesn't want them, they can't handle it, even if they have others and they've moved on and they've started dating, because this person doesn't want them. They can't handle or control that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely. There could be narcissism. I don't know enough yet to say what traits I'm seeing personality wise, but I mean, you could, if I had to guess, yes, I would, that would absolutely fit. But I would also say that there's some, I feel like at the core of this has to do with, and again, I know I always go back to this, but like attachment and identity. I feel like a lot of these cases go back to the same two things. Attachment is the thing that we form, that a strong emotional bond with usually parents in the very beginning of life. If he was adopted, there might have been, and I don't know this to be true, I'm just speculating, but these are some of the things that we see. So there might have been a lack of attachment there. I hear that he doesn't even talk to those parents anymore. Not that he doesn't talk to them. I don't think there was like an argument. I just think he just doesn't like check in with them. Like time just goes by. The one girlfriend did a video on TikTok, I think it was, and I watched it. And she was filling us in on some of the things, but she winds up breaking up with him because she said he was like boring. And I was like, but my thing is too, though, I don't think people should always break up over boring. Sometimes boring is a good thing. So I think this had to be a little bit different than boring. Like, in other words, what I mean is if you're just always having dramatics in your relationship, that's not good either, right? So sometimes when I hear boring, I'm like, is it routine? Because if it's routine, then that would be okay. So I don't know exactly what the girl meant, but you know, that's why she said she broke up with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she couldn't.
She couldn't what?
She couldn't get deep in conversation. She said everything was surface level, which is important. That also would fit in the like a check mark in the narcissistic part. So it was more about, like she said, like she would try to get into, like, think about conversations that maybe you and Steelers fan have had about like anything from politics to religion to how many kids you want, like anything. But she felt like every time she would get to a deep conversation, he, even including talking about his ex, he told her like the basics of what happened. And then she said like he never really wanted to talk about it anymore. And that he did that with a lot of deep conversations that she would start, he would just shut them down, which is a problem. I mean, how deep can a relationship get if somebody's just going to be surface level?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Now, we talked a little bit about it before, but there was a wedding video that was out. I'm going to bring it up. I want to play just a small part of it. Before we start, do you believe that he watched this video? It apparently had spiked up in views just before the murders. I thought it's a possibility they were going to be on their 5th anniversary, that maybe either them or a family member or somebody was going to put something together for them. They may have been going through it, but given what occurred, do you think it's possible that he was watching this over and over again before or throughout?
In my opinion, I would put my money on it. Absolutely. So not only that, one of my mods who does behavioral analysis, Sarah, she literally, on the day that this happens, like when we were looking at the video, she's like, remember when I did the Google Trends thing with BK? She was like, I bet you if I Google Trends this, it would. And sure enough, Daniel, you're right. There was a huge spike right before. That to me isn't a coincidence. Like, even if it is a 5-year anniversary, like my 20-year anniversary feels special to me, but it doesn't mean that all of my friends and family are going to go look at my wedding video type thing. So to me, that is when you see that increase in viewership, and I'm assuming or hoping that they would be able to figure out exactly where that viewership is coming from, but it looked like it was coming from where he was located, which would be really interesting, right?
That would be. I mean, that would show him actually watching this. Now, let's like anything that she says, in my opinion, if he is a narcissist, he's going to take everything she says against him, like she's saying it against him. When it comes to things that when she's not talking about, obviously, her husband, would you agree to that? That
yes,
a narcissist would?
Yes, I do. I do agree to that.
Let's play this and see what is said.
Spencer, what can I say? From day one, I knew you were something special. I had quite a journey to get to you. Countless bad bumble dates, wrong relationships, and waterfalls of tears.
So a couple of bad bumble dates, a wrong relationships. So she started off with singular, ended it with plural. I think she's probably most likely referring to Michael Tepe. And I mean, this is his Bumble also. So he had
You
Bumble.
said Michael. Wait, so
I mean, not Michael Tepe. I'm sorry, Michael Mckee.
yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So Michael Mckee had a Bumble, and I'm all over the place. Had a Bumble, and you know, do you think he took that as a dig at him?
Oh, absolutely. So, not only would I think that he took that as a dig on him, if you have a Bumble and you know that you had a failed marriage, and she says that she cried a lot of tears if you've seen her cry before, he's absolutely going to think that she means just him, in my opinion. So, and I mean, I'm sure some of what she was saying maybe did have to do with him, right? He was part of her past relationship. So even if it was about him or if it wasn't about him, he clearly took this, in my opinion, as about feeling out of control again and not having control and not feeling powerful at all. That gives her power. She's moved on. She has this husband. If you look at this video and these pictures, it doesn't take but 2 seconds to realize that these two, like, look at him looking at her. Like, I mean, every picture you see, the only word I could think of is in love. Yeah. They're the only words I see here. So, I mean, he must have been looking at this stuff, like, just ruminating on it. And that had to have made him furious.
I'm going to play just a few more things that she says.
But it was worth every cringing second because it led me to you. Throughout all of this, I knew that God was guiding me to my person, and that when I met him, it would be the most magical thing ever. And boy, is that an understatement.
So she goes, it was worth every cringing moment, you know, to get to you. Now he's a dentist, being Spencer. Michael Mckee is a vascular surgeon. Do you think he feels a certain way about that?
So not really. Well, let me tell you what I think this is about, in my opinion. I think this is more grievance-based than it is jealousy, if that makes sense. So like in these cases, the new partner often represents more than just a romantic rival, especially since he was doing his own thing as a surgeon. But it symbolizes more like replacement humiliation, okay? He might have felt humiliated at the fact that his college sweetheart doesn't work out type thing. And he might have felt like he was being erased, if you will. And the violence here is not just about this relationship, but it's about like getting rid of or annihilating the proof that life continued without him, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does make sense. And so you don't think then that like her, like he would see, if he was a narcissist and if he committed this crime, you don't think that he would see her marrying somebody who maybe perhaps he thinks is less than him? You know, he's looking at himself. I'm a surgeon. This is a dentist. You know, you married down from where you were. You don't think that would bother him?
I thought you meant like, so I'm glad that you just clarified that. So that's interesting that you said that. And I didn't realize that that's what you were saying, because that's what I mean by this seems more like grievance based more than jealousy, where with jealousy, it's usually you want what that person has, right? So with this, it's more grievances, like he lost control or he no longer has power. He feels humiliated, replaced, so on and so forth. So absolutely, he absolutely might have looked down on him. But the truth is, at the end of the day, he still won the girl at the end. So this is like that injustice filer that I was saying. And again, it's just grievance after grievance after grievance, and it just builds up. And although there's like a lot of logistics with this whole crime, there's a whole cognitive part of this crime that we can't ignore. So this person's just going to rehearse cognitively or your thought process just over and over and over until those like barriers break and it winds up happening.
That's amazing insight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I finally found my lobster, and it honestly couldn't be a person with a more beautiful heart. I will love you forever, and I'm so lucky to be Mrs. Tepe.
By the power vested in me by the Universal Life Church and by the state of Ohio, I now pronounce you husband and wife.
That's a beautiful video. It's a beautiful video. If you guys haven't watched it, go check it out. And so he watches that. Let's talk a little bit about what he did and what it might mean. So his charges were increased to aggravated murder, meaning that they believe that there was some sort of premeditation to this, like planning. This was something that I had been saying. I was like, the way the guy's walking, the way he looks down in front of the camera, the way that he parked away from the house, he didn't drive up to the house. This doesn't seem like a robbery. This doesn't seem like somebody who's, I was even almost tempted to say, like, someone upset. This sounds like, almost the Brian Koberger type of situation where, because, if this was a guy that I thought was like in the moment of rage, parking down the street and walking there doesn't really jive with that. But I was correct in the amount of calculation and that this guy took. I honestly didn't think somebody that would wait 9 years to go and commit a crime like this. And so I was a little bit taken back when it was him. And then also because it took like 12 days to arrest him. I would have thought that the very first person that law enforcement would have looked at was the ex-husband. And given the fact that he had to travel so far away, I thought it would have been a done deal, 3 days max.
And didn't he work overnight the night before? So he probably thought even more so that would play to his favor, because even if they did look, they would have been like, oh, he was probably asleep, da-da-da. So I feel like even that just shows planning for me. He like requested a cop that night. So like he works overnight, and that to me just says like he was trying to build an alibi.
Yeah, he was trying to build an alibi. He put his phone at work and left and then came back.
I did not know about that.
Yeah. Supposedly he left his phone on a cot or something of that nature. If all that's true, the planning and everything else, what does that tell you? Because I mean, obviously this is something that he took deeply personal. He took, it was a domestic violence type of situation. But going to this extent of planning, is that common when you see like domestic violence situations? I don't think it is. Most domestic violence calls that I ever went to were things that happened in the moment. People got upset, fought, mad, whatever, drugs, whatever. It was in a moment type of situation. This was extremely calculated. How often are extremely calculated domestic violence cases?
So believe it or not, and I think that this is good that you brought this up. I think what happens a lot of the time, Daniel, is that sometimes people in these situations might feel like calling the police might escalate it, or like, what are the police going to say something to them, and then they're going to feel like I got them in trouble and it's going to make it worse. So I guess my thing is, how many cases where something, dangerous occurred that the person never called?
Right, but those things that happen don't typically happen calculated like this.
Oh, I see what you're saying, like premeditated.
Yeah, like with this much forethought to plan where you're going to leave your phone, take a silencer, drive across, but leave a few blocks away, walk there, somehow get into the building without leaving any entry. Take them out by surprise in their bedroom, because that's where their bodies were found. I assume that had there been an opening of the door, and they let them, if one of the Tepes let him in, there probably would have been some sort of sign of something there, somebody getting surprised, something knocking over, something, but there wasn't. So it seems to me that it sounds like Miss Tepe was in the bed and he was just off of the bed, so he probably got up and tried to move towards him after waking up. But all that calculation and premeditation, like I would think it's not very common. I think
that's not common. I thought you meant that like people that domestic violence gets to a point of where a person feels
no. No. Yeah,
Gotcha.
No, 100%. That happens quite a bit.
No, you're absolutely right. So for me, this is where, because again, how many, situations, they don't end up like this. So in this case, I think we have somebody, and hopefully we'll get into it eventually, but I wonder how him being adopted also played into this as far as that lack of attachment or a fear of abandonment. But I have a few notes written down for that. But what you're talking about for me is more that cognitive rehearsal that I was saying, where you wind up mentally walking through this over and over and over until eventually it just like the walls collapse. But in this particular thing, like you said, you would think that somebody would be, you know, like if it happened in the moment, they would be like aggravated or whatever. But the truth is here, by the time the action occurs, the person might feel calm, not impulsive, because they've been preparing cognitively for a long time. In this case, it could have been years.
Well,
and
I mean,
he just never acted on it.
just the drive alone to get from where he was at to the location was a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you know, that right there throws out anything that just says, oh, something happened and he flipped, because that's a long time to cool down.
Yeah, it is. Well, that makes me wonder if it had to do with the two medical grievances that he had. Like, I wonder, because you're right, usually there is, and it doesn't, that's the thing, the outside thing that like flicks it on, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that, you know, these two did. I mean, could it have been that their 5-year wedding anniversary was also played a part in it? Maybe, but it's probably more that he felt like he was losing control in other areas of his life. In this case, work. I think they said allegedly he left like a piece of a catheter in one person. I don't know if he did.
No,
it
it wasn't
think
him.
The PA did, but he was the one over watching the PA, so that makes him
her.
Right. So but he was there. So like they were saying he should have. So but he wasn't the one that did it. You're right. But he was there, and they're saying like he should have known better, whatever. And then there was another one. Either way, the fact that he has two grievances, even if they're not true, like let's say they were lies, even in that case, just the fact of having them is just another injustice on him. It's like another file that he's making of these injustices, and it probably made him feel very out of control. There's only so much you can control in that situation. And it seems like, I don't know if you've seen this too, but in doing the research for the show, I did see that he winds up, they tried to serve him 9 times and they never were able to serve him because he just kept moving around. And so like that to me right there is very calculated.
Yeah, well, the addresses didn't exist, and what he did was he failed to train a physician assistant properly, and the assistant hurt somebody during. So I don't think he was even there, but he was just the person that trained them. But that's why supposedly you get like insurances and things of that nature for these things.
Exactly.
But you know, to me, I felt like, you know, maybe you're right. Like not so much that you're right, but I thought about that beforehand. I was like, you know, something happened, and he's like, all right, my life is going down the pooper scooper. And I gotta, you know, while it's going down, I'm going to take out my ex-wife and her husband, you know, just because, you know, my life is already over. But in that type of scenario, I don't foresee somebody going through that much planning, you know. For him to have gone through this much planning tells me that he intended on getting away with this, don't you think?
Oh gosh, yeah. And especially if he had narcissistic traits, he would have thought that, like we see with other cases too, he would have thought that they're never going to look at me. Like, yeah, absolutely. I think he thought that he was going to get away with this.
Yeah. So like, I think that maybe that he thought, all right, they're going to look at the phone and see that I was at work and look at my work schedule and see and roll me out. And that's the end of it. That's what I think he thought, because he ended up keeping the weapon. They found the weapon and they matched it already ballistically, I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what I had read.
Why do you think he kept the weapon?
Well, I think that he thought that his planning was so good that he wasn't going to be looked at to that extent that they were going to search him. And I felt that he probably thought that they were going to talk to him first. And that he could, you know, that he was going to not say anything, and then at that point do something. You know,
so
one of those.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point because, and just think about it. If somebody, and again, this is just me putting on my narcissist hat. If I had to think like a narcissist in this case, he might have even thought like, they're definitely not going to think it was me. I lived so far away. I worked there, like all the things that you said. So why would I get rid of this? Like I paid good money for this. Like this is my, like almost to where it's like an entitlement type thing more so. So like, I don't see this as something that like he kept for a reminder, like we might see in other crimes. You're probably right about, the more I talk about this, the more narcissistic traits I see. But again, traits are traits, you guys. I'm not diagnosing anyone. But I do think that this was definitely like cognitively, or the thought process, this was definitely organized in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. Do you think that he knew there was kids in the house?
This is a great question. So in my opinion, right, he would have had to know that there were kids. If he was like looking at her on social media and stuff, or even if he ran into other people that he was asking, how's she doing? What is she up to? Somebody might have said she's pregnant. You know what I mean? Oh, Sarah's saying the God complex in Scrubs. And she also said that his masks fell. Sarah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And Sarah's right. So she called it masks. I just said the walls fell, but she's absolutely right. That's what I also think happened. And the God complex, this is what she's talking about. Sometimes when we see somebody that is, especially in positions of like surgery, so think of like a surgery where it might be a life or death situation. So, okay, let's say you're a heart surgeon, right? So these could be life or death situations. Your dad, for example, he needed surgery and like you were hoping that the person doing it was going to help him, and they did, right? So in that sense though, that could put somebody cognitively in a godlike complex. And again, this doesn't mean that the person's bad, but if you think about it, they technically have your life in their hands sometimes. And that could really, that could really play a role. And I think that that's what Sarah's talking about there with the God complex.
It definitely could. Like I said, he's gotten everything in his life. Could he blame the football thing? Like, could he try to come in and say? I can't
believe you said that. I was going to ask you about CTE.
Yeah, I was wondering. Like, I think that's probably
can't believe you said that.
Because he pled not guilty, and I think that he's going to try to get obviously he's going to try to get a some sort of plea. And in my opinion, I think that's what he's aiming for. And I'm wondering if he's going to try to use, maybe perhaps CTE or playing football competitively at a collegiate level, that he may have had concussions, especially if he has some sort of history of concussions that are documented.
In my notes to Daniel up here, it literally says, ask Daniel, does he think he's going to use CTE in his defense?
That's psychic Daniel coming in.
There you go. Or I was psychic for knowing that you were going to. You can look at it that way too.
So many psychicness is just going on.
That's interesting, right? Because technically, he actually excelled at football. He did really good. He played college football, and he played. He wasn't like a bench warmer. So he might be able to try. And again, I don't think that this would do anything as far as guilty or not guilty. If anything, it would do something, in my opinion. And if somebody's in law out there, like if Travis or Chloe are here, if they could tell us, but I would think that would be more for a mitigating thing for sentencing, more so than guilt or innocence, right?
Right. Yeah, that would. Well, I think he would try to use that and then use that as a means to get things either thrown out, like. And, maybe because I think they have the death penalty there. Getting that thrown out, or getting maybe life without parole thrown out. I think that maybe perhaps they're going to try to utilize that. But the amount of premeditation that went into this in the calculation, the fact that they upped the charges, and they upped the charges a little bit after the fact, after they arrested him, tells me they found some stuff, whether it's in his house, whether it's on his phone. But they found something that showed evidence of planning. Could it have been just merely the silencer? Because, hey, why does he need a silencer? You're going to try to articulate that the silencer was used so that way it would mitigate the sound. So that way you don't alert others of the crime. And this provided some sort of planning and forethought that he went there with the thought process that he is going to shoot somebody. Not just going to go there and scare somebody, not just going to go there and rob somebody or whatever the case, that the intention was there to commit this crime. Maybe, I mean, that's not a big leap, but, you would need some articulation there. Now, if you found evidence of planning and, him going, through their Facebooks and social medias repeatedly and stuff like that, and looking at maps and addresses and all those things, and how to break into the codes, or if he has videos on how to unlock doors and stuff like that, that's just constant in his search history. You're really going to paint a pretty picture there. Farm Dog Mama comes in with $5. Just thanks for discussing this. I feel we can learn from this tragedy. 100%.
Real quick, Farm Dog Mama, I read your thing in chat about how your ex-husband calls you or texts you every year for your birthday, and that you had also that an emotionally charged relationship, I would say, like you said, I think you said you blocked them and stuff. That would be something that I would make sure that if anybody's going through that in life, that you make sure that other people in your life know about it. Make sure that, because I mean, why would somebody keep reaching out year by year? The only thing that says to me is that they want to still feel like they have control, or if you've moved on, that they're still in your thought process, because your birthday's coming around. So you just said it on a live, right? Think about it. So the person's in their head, which is what they want. And that's the whole point of this. And there's no way to, undo that other than take precautions. But it's just interesting to see that this does happen more than I think we talk about, at least these little red flags that we see along the way. And a lot of it has to do with the loss of control and that feeling of, I still want to be powerful in this person's life.
Very true. Good advice. Tall Red Texas comes in saying, where's his family? Have they spoken out? I haven't seen anybody speak out on his behalf. Some ex-girlfriends have spoken out and their family members. I think a neighbor has, but not really anybody that was friends with him. If we find out that this guy was a loner, is that going to surprise you?
The suspect?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. That would just say to me that that would just play more into the adoption thing that I was saying about possible abandonment or attachment disruption. So it's almost like, I get close to people because now I'm creating an opportunity for them to leave me too. And again, I don't know that this is what he was thinking, but this is something that if I were seeing him in like a therapy type session, that I would want to figure out, because for individuals with unresolved attachment wounds, if they even perceive abandonment, so even if she moves on, she didn't abandon him, they got divorced, right? But if it's perceived abandonment, in this adulthood relationship, it can reactivate early loss narratives, even if those narratives were conscious, even if those narratives were talked out or articulated for the person so that they could think through them. So if there was any attachment issues, her leaving, especially the way she does, how she ups and leaves, that just seems like it might have amplified his emotional dysregulation.
Do you think that if the relationship was ended on his terms, that he would have cared less about her after the fact?
Well, it would show that it would actually show a different level of, I don't think that we would have seen that because of what we see, how this plays out here. But for somebody where it's mutual, most of the time, I mean, people get divorced all the time. Nobody, not nobody, but a lot of people, this doesn't happen. So most people get divorced and they move on and they both go on to their own things. So here, I feel like there must have been attachment, or I feel like this had to have come even before they got married. So like even during their relationship, they met during their college years, things like that. So I feel like this this attachment issue, and again, this is just my opinion, might have continued because of some of his early attachment wounds, if you will, for lack of a better term. But just know that isolation doesn't create violence in itself, but it does remove the buffers, right, that might have otherwise stopped it.
Gotcha. Sarah Adams comes in saying, does external locus on control come into play? Now, before you answer that, can you explain what external locus on control is?
So we talked about this before. So this is just talking about control, and this is what we were just talking about here. So that losing of control, that losing of power, not feeling powerful. So this is like when a person would believe that their outcomes, for example, are controlled by other people. So, or by fate or by unfair circumstances. So it's like that injustice factor that I was saying. And the thing is, I don't know that we know yet, but I do think that, of course he might have think like, so this is more like that. This happened to me, therefore I'm justified in the way that I responded. But again, that's not real, you guys. We're talking about somebody's thought process.
Steelers fan says, I need to get off whatnot, spend $2. Well, you shouldn't have spent the $2 here either. No, I'm just kidding. She actually, she won a couple of things earlier. Like the first time that she ever gotten on it, she won some Pokemon stuff, and it's pretty crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
That's
The luck
funny.
that she has. I think she won like she paid $20 and won like $80 twice worth of stuff. It's awesome stuff.
Good for her.
But yeah, good luck. But I told her, hey, you
Go
won.
play the lottery.
Yeah, let's you can't play the odds too much. Let's stay off of it.
That's so funny.
I'm gonna
But
call
just
1-800 gambling.
Yeah, right. But just to like sum up that external locus of control for people, if you think of what it says, it's literally saying that the outside environment controls, or that's the reason that these things happen. And if you think of it, it's like if I'm a victim, I don't have to be reflective because I'm a victim. So it's almost like, that you were wronged from the outside. And therefore, you're like psychologically protecting yourself. So that's what she means by external locus of control. I'm sure he blames outside things, absolutely, but that could also be a narcissistic trait. So I think we have to tread lightly with that one.
Interesting stuff. So we talked a little bit about, did he know if the kids were there? We assume that he did. What does that say about him? Like, just first in general, taking the parents of two young kids, the callousness that comes behind that. Does that say anything? Like, if he was aware that there was kids in the house and it didn't matter to him, and that they were going to be without parents, they're going to live this life now, and not knowing who their parents were, what does that say about that situation, about him?
That's so interesting. And yeah, I want to know more about the kids. Like, I don't know if we know yet. I hear some stories that he like locked the door behind him. I feel like the things that he did or didn't do would play a role in how I would answer this question. And I don't know that we have a full picture, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I do think, in my opinion, he had to have known about the kids. But how this played a role in why they lived, it could be a couple different things. It could be, like you said, he didn't have, well, I don't know if you just said this or if that's how you meant it, but like he grew up adopted and stuff. So now these kids don't have there's so many different things this could be, but I do want to know, do we know yet if the door was shut and locked? Because if so, that would mean to me that he didn't want the kids to go in.
I do not know.
So
I haven't heard that. I've heard just rumors of that.
Yeah. As a cop, would that make it, like, would that, or as an investigator, would that make a difference either way? Like, would that be more egregious in like the eyes of the law if he
not necessarily? It would be. Would it be more egregious? No, but would it when you're searching for your suspect? Does it say anything? If he closed the door behind him and he locked the door, then that says that. I mean, I could say a lot of things, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But given the fact that there was no, if we try to put it into, like, look at the whole picture, no forced entry, bodies, one in the bed, one on the floor, bedroom, surprise attack. Does this guy lock the door before he goes in and commits this crime? Because it doesn't seem like there was any motive or anything like that. So it seems, guy parked down the street, walked straight there, doesn't look at other houses, doesn't look at other vehicles, and then there was other doors there, isn't looking around, so it doesn't appear that this is a thief. Once you start putting in and painting all that picture there, it says that the guy knew them, and to me, it's one of the reasons why I thought it was a very calculated, callous person, like a Brian Koberger type of thing. That was one of the reasons why I was leaning that way. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is he taking away what he thought he wanted or what he was after? And if he was a narcissist, I don't know how narcissists feel about kids. Is it because that wasn't something that was in his plans with her? Could that be a reason why he didn't,
No, I actually think in my opinion, I think that it probably was another injustice that she moved on and had 2 kids. And she recently wasn't the little one a bully. So I don't know how that plays into things, but he could have thought like, now not only did she move on into a different marriage, like into a marriage, but now she has kids, which is kind of like solidifying the fact that I'm not getting her back ever. Even if that was never, a possibility to begin with. We're talking about perception, and perception's reality, even when it's not real. So if you think that it's real, that's how we have to treat it. We have to treat it as if that's your reality. It might not be the reality, but it would be that person's reality. So I think if anything, I wonder how that might have played into why the kids are still alive today, and if it did play into it at all, or if he wasn't thinking about the kids at all because he was on a mission. He had to go, he had to get his target, and then so I really don't know, because I don't know exactly. I think if I know more about the scene, and if the kids, like if he left that door open for those kids, especially the 4-year-old, to just walk in and see her parents, I mean, that is just egregious on a whole different level, in my opinion, psychologically.
Oh, I don't disagree with you there. I think it definitely would be.
Especially if it was like thought about.
But, he just, committed a crime with a handgun, even though he had a silencer. It most likely was still very loud. And in the dead silence of the night, it's going to sound even more amplified in that room, to the point where it may not be noticeable outside of that room. But, to that person inside that room in the dead silence, they're going to begin to wonder. And I think they just got out of there as fast as they could. Now, does that mean that he closed the door behind him? Maybe, maybe not.
So you're thinking it's more of like a mission thing, like I was saying, like I came, I did this. So with that being said, do we know who died first?
I don't know who died first. I'll say this though. I don't think it was a mission thing. Like, oh, I got here, I came, this is what happened. I think it was more a shock, especially if he's never shot anybody, or shot in the silence of night inside of a room like that. How that might echo inside there. I think that might scare somebody into thinking somebody else may have heard this. The dog starts barking, the kids start crying. That's somebody's going to be alert of this.
And the silencer wouldn't help that.
It would, but it's not. The silencer is still pretty loud. I mean, it takes like the bass out.
I think in the movies where it's like boo boo, like in the mob movies, it's not like that.
It is not like that. It's still pretty loud. Now there are some there's like one that's like super wildly expensive, and it goes to like a specific gun, and all you hear is like this slide clapping. But even at that, it's loud. You just hear and that's it. And so, but even like I said, that is fairly loud. And so in the dead silence of night, where there's no noise, there's no road noise outside, super quiet in that room, to him, it's going to sound super loud. And so I think there's a good possibility he just got out of there as fast as he could after committing the crime.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If he made entry into that place, I don't know how, maybe the back door was left unlocked, but let's just say that was the way, because I know that it sounds like through dispatch that the friends that made entry into the house made entry through the back door, and it didn't, if there was no forced entry, no sign of forced entry, that means that they didn't break into it either. So I'm assuming that the back door was unlocked. At least it was unlocked when that's probably where he exited and left it unlocked. If it wasn't locked before he made entry. But let's just say that's the case. He walks into that room. He sees both of them there, and he's standing at the foot of the bed. Monique had one shot. He had multiple shots. Do you think that I hate to ask this, but like, do you think his first target was Monique, and that was the first person he shot because that was who his target was?
So what I'm thinking, and again, this is just pure speculation, but I would think that I feel like he probably, like I said in the very beginning, felt humiliated in a sense by her just leaving in the middle of the night, where he felt like he wasn't ready for that at all. Like he didn't seem like he knew it was coming. So I feel like because he felt humiliated in some sense. I mean, and again, this is just me speculating, but I wouldn't be surprised if he shot him first so that she could see that type thing. And then, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Almost like, I don't know, but I don't know. What do you think? I wouldn't be surprised if I saw that he was shot first and then her.
I think that there's a good chance that it was her first. And then I think he got up, which is why he was off the bed.
Interesting.
And then he was shot multiple times.
Could you fall off the bed from being shot multiple times? Like, is there enough force?
Yeah, but like, so it depends, right? I'm assuming these are center mass, right? And it depends on how long it takes for them to succumb to the wounds. Can somebody roll over after being shot and then fall on the floor? Yeah, 100%. You know, but it just kind of depends on where they were hit and how soon they went. But yeah, no, definitely could happen that way.
I also wonder if being shot once for her, like if he shot him a few times, to me, that's like, you know, he was trying to end it right there. Where like for her, like, does your life really, if you get shot in the chest, and again, this is just a question because I don't know, would that take a minute to bleed out, if you will, for lack of a better term?
It's more than just the bleeding. You're also probably doing some damage to your lungs there, and you know, you're drowning, your lungs are collapsing, you're panic. There's not much movement that's going to be happening there. There's a lot of people are just going to die like that. Shot like in the arm or in the leg, even if it's like an artery or some of that nature. Yeah, but like something that immediately takes your breath away, probably not.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's probably not going to. So this is a guy who made a demonstration. Hopefully we don't get kicked off. I don't think so from YouTube. We get demonetized. But he's going to shoot a handgun with and without a suppressor, so that way we can kind of get an idea of what it sounds like. This is without. Same gun, putting on a suppressor. You see, you can hear a lot of sound in the background from like nature. So it's still pretty loud. It's not quite silent.
But it doesn't sound like that fireworky sound.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the fireworky, but in the dead of the night, in a room enclosed, in a small room, it's not a big room, you know, that's huge. So you're inside of a room enclosed where sound bounces back. How is that going to sound to him?
Mm-hmm.
Probably pretty loud, and that could probably get somebody to leave at a high rate of speed, which is why he's not picking up all the shell casings. He did all this planning and didn't pick up the casings.
I wonder if there's something more to that. Like, do you think he could have, when somebody writes on it, do they write on the bullet or the casing?
The casing.
I'm wondering.
If there was something on the casing, what would that indicate to you?
Oh, that would indicate to me. Think of like the Louis Mangione one, right? Like the words that he wrote, it was pretty much like, these are the things that killed you, pretty much, right? So I would say that there would be a lot. And the other one, the Charlie Kirk, right? He wrote on there too. So I feel like it gives the message of what exactly this person, like, this is why I did this type thing.
Yeah.
Do you think the same thing?
I don't think there's going to be any writing on it.
No, but if there was,
then yeah, I mean, it just talks about how deeply personal he took it. You know, obviously he took this personally, but I mean, even more so to put it down in writing, you know, spewing the hatred of whatever it is that he would be saying, you know.
And the only reason I say it is because Nancy Grace had it on. So I'm like, I feel like, would she just have that on there? Like,
well, here's the thing, like I'm not familiar with somebody writing on bullets for something that's not for a movement of some sort.
Interesting.
You get what I'm saying? So for this, in this scenario, to me, that would be out of characteristic.
That's
not
a great
saying
point.
Not ever saying that the movement was correct by any means. But
people are like, oh, Nancy.
Right. Yeah. The writing of bullets has always been like against the government, against a person, against a political view,
That's true.
against a local government, against whatever the case may be, even if it was a targeted attack on somebody. I've not heard of one. I mean, and I could be wrong. But the only other thing I could think of would have been like a calling card for like a serial killer type of thing, to leave a marker on the shell casings, their insignia or logo, something like, I think, maybe like Zodiac did, not necessarily on cartridges and things of that nature, but like he wrote his logo on some of the letters that he wrote out and stuff like that. So that would maybe be it, and that's a stretch in my opinion, but those are the only two things I think that when we would see writing on something like that.
I'm so glad that I asked you, because now that you say that, I totally agree with that. And I think that, so why would somebody write it in a movement? Because they would want the person that finds it to know that I did this for the movement type thing, where like this, it's like if you get caught doing this, you almost know why it came about. You know what I mean? Like the motive is pretty much there. So that does make total sense. So I'm glad that I asked.
Yeah, and the fact that he left those there and didn't take the time to find it kind of tells me he got freaked out by the sound and left at a high rate speed. So that's just kind of my thoughts and opinions there. Sirius comes in with $5 saying, "Love the hat. Thank you for everything." Oh, thank you, Sirius. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And then and Sarah Adams comes in saying, "Leveling the playing field." What do you think? Leveling the playing field. What does that mean?
So, like, in other words, taking his power back, taking his control back.
Do you think that's why he kept the gun, was because it was a sign of his control being taken back?
It could have been, but I would assume that he has more than one. Like, I feel like, it seems like he had the money that he would be able to get another, like a replacement if he needed it. To me,
Right,
that's arrogance.
But that weapon is what took his control back.
Exactly. So arrogance, I guess that would be the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
So then, yes, I guess that would be the same thing. It would be more arrogance where like we see with some other people, they keep it as like, I guess a trophy would also be arrogance, but I see this. I don't know. I think I need to know more to really answer, but it could have been that could have reminded him of taking his control back, or it could have just been that he was like, I'm not going to get caught, so why would I get rid of this? I spent a lot of money on it.
Could he feel like it's an extension of him? Like he's connected to it?
I mean, he could, but I would feel like if he had, if I'm like thinking what I'm thinking about attachment issues, I don't know if he would have gotten that attached to it. I think it would solve in his head. It doesn't really, but it would solve a purpose in his head. But I don't know that it would be something like a transitional object, like a bear for a kid that still has it in adulthood. So I wouldn't see it attachment in that way. But maybe like the means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
It's materialistic. That's what Sarah's saying. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the word. Thank you, Sarah. He's materialistic. That's what I'm trying to say.
The fact that he used a gun versus like a knife, that would be more of a personal attack. Does that say anything?
Well, we know that as a surgeon, right? We know that he's not squeamish of cutting.
He would know where.
Right, exactly. And we know that, I mean, I think sometimes people, but we know that he would have the stomach for like it. That wouldn't have. So I think that it's interesting that I never even thought of this until just now, until you just said it. But I'm wondering if that all played a role into why he chooses a gun, or does he choose a gun just out of convenience or the fact of being able to do it quicker? I don't know. That's a good question, Daniel. I'm gonna have to think about that one. And the next time we do this, I'll once I ponder on it, I'll let you know, because I think that that's a whole thing that could play a role in his psyche and what he was thinking about this.
Yeah. Because I mean, maybe perhaps he was hoping that it would throw off law enforcement if he used a gun. If versus a knife, a knife might be something that would tell law enforcement this is a personal situation.
Could he have been afraid that the husband might have gotten control of the knife type thing? Whereas with a gun, it's like, I'm going there to do this, so I'm more likely to get that done with a gun as opposed to a knife.
I don't think so. This guy was a fairly big guy, and Spencer I don't know how big or small he was, but compared to when I've seen pictures, it appeared that Michael was bigger than him, like a bigger dude. He played football on the college level and stuff like that. So he definitely, in my opinion, probably was a bigger stature than him. And if he is this narcissistic guy, then I think he thinks he can take him. I'm wondering if it's more so that he thought through that process and thought that if he took a knife, maybe he just thought it would have been faster with the gun. But if that's the case, if speed and getting out of there quickly, it's not necessarily about, I don't want to say this, sounds weird to say this, but like enjoying the moment there. It almost sounds like somebody doing it just to do it.
What, with a gun?
Yeah.
Well, it distances you from them, because with a knife, right, you're up close and personal. But you said something interesting that made me think. Could it be that if he thought, because we all think, right, the first person they go to is exes, so he might have thought that they're going to talk to him, and maybe they'll think because he's a surgeon that he might use a knife. So it never even occurred to me that could have played a role in that way. I wonder if that played a role in it. Like you said, maybe they wouldn't think that it was him if he used a gun. I don't know, because I'm sure he thought about all of this. In my opinion, he's been thinking about this for a long time.
I don't disagree with you. I think he definitely has. Like I said, there was a lot of things that were just screaming out to me that this was a very calculated incident. Since day one, since we got the footage, I was like, there's a lot in there. Him looking down, the where he parks, the reason he's walking, what he's not looking at. He's not looking at other places to rob. He's not looking for things that are unlocked. He's not looking for easy access to stuff. He went specifically there. And to me, I just screamed calculation. I think they got a lot of evidence against this guy. I think he's going to end up going down pretty quick. I think we're just waiting on him to get extradited back. I don't think he's gotten back yet to Ohio. Prediction time. Do you think this goes to trial?
No, I think he tries to get a plea. What do you think?
I think so too.
Because I think by taking a plea, he's in control. In his head, even though that's not in control, but in his head, it would be like he gets to make that decision of his fate as opposed to chancing a jury. Yeah.
I don't think, especially since they found the gun with him and they got the car out there and I'm fairly positive that you're going to have tow roads that he's going to have to drive through and things like that. That's going to put him in the vehicle. In fact, I believe the probable cause affidavit mentioned that they have him in the vehicle before and afterwards. I wonder if that's because of a toll road. I wonder also if that's him arriving back and forth to work. There's a lot of things that can be deduced by that. It's a long drive, right? And so if he's back within 3 hours, then obviously it wasn't him. But if he takes off and he comes back and it's 15 hours later, I ain't got a problem here, Mr. Mckee.
And I would assume that it would be more, now that you say that he would be more covered with like evidence if he's stabbed, right? Wouldn't it be faster just to shoot and then get back to where you were, like back to the hospital where his phone was?
That would be. It'd be a lot less mitigation there, evidence mitigation. Now, the only thing he's going to have to worry about, which I'm certain they're probably going to get in his vehicle, because it's not something, you probably have a lot of forethought about, and that's going to be gunshot residue. So him taking multiple shots, he's going to have a lot of gunshot residue on his person, on his arms, on his chest. And so when he gets into his vehicle, even if he takes off his gloves, that seatbelt, that's going across his chest into the, buckling it in, where he rests his arm on the armrest, on both sides, all those things. If he doesn't go in there and go in and extra clean that stuff, there's going to be residue all over that place.
Does it stay for a while?
It should. It was cold. It was.
And he was caught pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, I think he was caught like within 11 days. He still had the gun with him. I don't know. I'm gonna look that up. How long does gunshot residue stay on fabric?
Yeah, I'm wondering. But just while you're doing that, just so that when we were talking about the kids, these kids now are going to grow up with a story that they didn't choose for themselves, right? So I think that what they need most, in my opinion, is stable caregivers that can provide a stable environment where there's what's the word I'm looking for? Routine. That's the word I'm looking for, where there's routine so that, and support so that they can, get the best chance out of life, even though, this is just going to follow them, unfortunately, forever.
Yeah. And GSR gunshot residue can last on clothing for hours, days, or even longer, depending on factors like the fabric, the environment conditions, and the movement. It can be removed by washing. Leather?
Yeah, let's see a leather, because I don't know that he had leather, but I wonder.
Yeah, he is a doctor.
Oh, well, that's why
probably does have a decent car. Leather can be days.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And obviously you want to get to it fast enough, but that's not something that most people are thinking about. They're thinking about washing their hands. Yeah. And so, you get in the car, that's something that you're going to be able to transfer out. They also had a dog in the house, a golden doodle. So, if he got close to that bed and that dog has been on that bed, there's a good possibility that there's some transfer there. Maybe perhaps you can find some of that in the car as well. This guy is not Bryan Kohberger. He's an intelligent person, but Bryan Kohberger had a study in forensics and a study in criminal justice, which gave him a much more upper hand in that when it came to how investigators, or knowledge of how investigators are going to investigate the crime. That's how he was able to elude that investigation for about 7 weeks. Mr. Mckee.
Do you think it's different though, in the sense that that one had more of like a serial type thought process, in my opinion, and the other one, it was more about like domestic? Like, do you think that plays a role?
Not necessarily. Well, I do think that. I think that if, for instance, if Mckee was a criminal justice major and he understood, where law enforcement was going to go and things of that nature, could he have turned into somebody who was going to, take the life of somebody else and not go after somebody that would be connected to him, because that would lead back to him, like Bryan Kohberger knew? I think that Bryan Kohberger was aware that, if he went out and took out his professor, or if he took out some of these girls that made complaints against him, that it would come back to him. He'd be the first person that they would look at. Even if it was his ex-wife for 9 years, I think he would have known that the first person they're going to look at is him. Does Mr. Mckee here not, because he's not in that field, doesn't understand how law enforcement are going to investigate him, and knows very little about law enforcement and how people got caught and things of that nature. If he had more knowledge, is he going to target somebody he knows? Maybe not. Could he have turned into a Bryan Kohberger? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that he could? Do you think this would have been his last person if he didn't get caught?
Probably, in my opinion. So I think he could have had the possibility, but I think that would have just played into a God type complex. I do think in chat, I do see a really good comment that I think we should share. Bryan Kohberger and this doctor had two things. The one thing that they had in common is that although they were both high achievers, they both had low emotional intelligence. And I do think that plays a role into both.
What's emotional intelligence?
Oh, emotional intelligence. I'm a genius if we're talking about emotional intelligence. No, but this is like the ability to just, like, I could walk into a room and I just know to like go talk to that person because they're having a bad day, or like I could feel like empathizing with others, but also being reflective of yourself and knowing, being able, like, for example, if me and my daughters just got into like an argument and I raised my voice, I would like feel bad about that. I would reflect on that and be like, as the mom, this is what you did wrong. And I would go up there and talk to them because I would know that if I didn't, that could have an emotional. So it's like being very emotionally aware, not only of other people, but also of yourself. And I think that's that depth that girlfriend was talking about that he wasn't able to do. He wasn't able to get deep because he probably didn't have a very high emotional intelligence, which makes total sense.
That does make sense. Well, as more information comes out, we're going to continue. Or I'm going to continue to.
I'll be here. Case. I'll be here too.
There you go. I'm glad. This has been great. I think you've answered a lot of the questions that I had from like the psychological standpoint. What does it say about, some of the actions and the decisions that this guy made? I think there's a chance that if he would have gotten away with this, that he may have targeted other people that have in his mind done him wrong.
Which would be that God complex, right? So
Yeah.
you could be right. Like maybe in the future, if somebody gets in his way, that could be true, especially if he got away with it.
One last thing, do you think that he's done anything in his profession that may have cost the life of somebody else?
So this is a great question. I don't know that so much as like the entitlement part of it, like these little complaints. And again, I'm interested to see if he was in that operation where the person left the catheter. I really want to know that because again, like, was he just, assuming that he did a good job of teaching that person that he didn't even have to overlook it? Or was it just where he wasn't thinking? I don't know. But I forget the actual question you just asked. I just had a complete like ADHD moment.
No, my question was, do you think that he's cost the life of someone else?
Oh, that's what it was. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I'd even be able to answer that because that would be more like a psychic thing. To me, this was something that he's been stirring over for years. So I feel like this probably took his focus for the most part. But would I be surprised if I found out something? No. But I didn't even think that way. So I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you have an opinion?
I think there's a good possibility. If he committed this crime in the manner that he did, I wouldn't be surprised that there was a buildup, and one of the buildups was something that appeared to be accidental, something that was, during surgery that looked like it was an accident, looked like it was a mistake of some sort, or just somebody, just not surviving the surgery.
And if that was the case, that would fit right into that God complex.
Yeah.
Like your life is in my hands, literally.
Yeah. I wonder if there's, I don't know if there's a way to look that up. How many folks didn't survive surgeries, but
I'm sure they're going to be looking it up now at the hospital.
Yeah, I definitely would. Cause I wonder if that was, somewhat of a buildup. I know that there was a call a couple of weeks earlier, like 11 days before the murders. Down the street, somebody was trying to break into another house, and I thought maybe that was him trying to set up, I guess, the thought process that somebody was just trying to break into houses in that neighborhood. You know what I mean? I wonder if that was him too.
I'm so glad I did this with you because you bring up so many things that I don't even think about. But now that I have these extra pieces of information, I can then play them or put them into how I'm thinking to, fine tune my thought process. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. There's a lot of things you brought up tonight that I wasn't even thinking about. So that's really good.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, Dr. Bona, what do you have going on the rest of the week?
So it's only 7:49 and I'm procrastinating on building the rest of my modules. So don't be surprised if I go live in like an hour. But one last thing I just want to make sure that I say to people is that when attachment wounds, isolation, and perceived abandonment, again, perceived abandonment, it doesn't necessarily have to be, when these all come together without a support system, the risk isn't necessarily sadness, it's emotional dysregulation, and just meaning that the person loses control of their emotion, and bad things can happen from that. So I do think that it's important that everybody knows where to go if they do need support. There are, we should put Cuff You if you can. Can you put Cuff You's the best one, like the spot? Can you put the DV hotline up there just in case anybody is struggling with that? I want to make sure that we put that up there for people just in case. So you guys look in the chat if you need that, or obviously you could Google it too. Yeah,
100%. Stay vigilant.
What
everybody.
are you doing next?
I got to work extra late tomorrow night, so I might go live tomorrow. So we'll see. But probably the next time you'll see me, if I don't go live, then it'll be on Wednesday. I have been doing some other videos on some different type of content. Some of my buddies have got me into this whole Pokemon stuff. These cards, and I had a video opening up some stuff, and actually it's doing pretty well. So I might do another one. Yeah, I'm hoping. Well, here's my goal. My goal is that my little one Rogan, that she's going to end up liking it. So what I've been doing is I've been buying two. One for now and one for when she gets a little bit older.
Aww.
And so that way she has some stuff that's a little bit, old, so to speak. Because right now, like, everybody's looking for like the stuff that's like 3-4 years old. It's a lot of value. Everybody gets excited about those things. And so in 3-4 years, when she gets of age, she'll have some things that are 3-4 years old.
That's so cool.
That people will be excited about, and I'm hoping she'll be excited about to open up. And
that's cool. My dad used to do that for us, but he wouldn't let us play with anything. So I'm like, what the hell is the point of getting? He would be like, no, but that's not the point. You got to keep it all. And I'm like, okay. So we all had all these things in storage of just all different things that if he did that same thing. So hopefully he'll at least let her play with some of them.
Oh yeah, she can play with the bulk. She can play with the stuff that's not worth anything.
That's what my dad said. That's so funny. But I guess it's the point that you guys were even thinking about us that matters. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So, I took her to her first card show this weekend. That was fun. It was my first card show also. I didn't buy anything there. But I was a little bit overwhelmed. There was a situation where I know very little. And so because I know very little, I was overwhelmed, and so I was like, I'm not gonna buy anything.
I'm a little out of control there. That happens to me when I'm in a situation where it's all new to me. I'm like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. So, but we'll like, comment, subscribe. So you
yes,
can check
please go subscribe and like and comment to Daniel and to me, to all the things. Thank you, Daniel. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
This was great. Until next time, guys. We'll see y'all later. Peace out.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.